Okay, Megan, thank you for submitting your work. Attaching my illustrations is a bit of work to do in regards to fine details. I agree. We'll talk about that in a second. Look forward to your feedback. I had so much fun making these. I'm so glad to hear that. I just love this assignment. I think it's fantastic. And just for giggles and grins, I want you to do this. Go back to students' very first submission here in this first iterations of the digital renderings of the portraits. And then when we're done and go back and compare the first to the final, and it'll blow you away how good students get in this assignment. That's why I think this assignment is so important because number one, it teaches you some great techniques regarding the creation of flat illustrations. Flat meaning we're not using any raster effects like shadows and gradients. And that's a fantastic technique because if ever in a situation you are called upon to create an illustration that where a highly digital feel, more of a traditional kind of old school minimalistic style would suffice the project more so than a highly polished digital rendering. This is just a great way to approach that type of illustrative project. The other thing is that it's if you can draw, I mean, I know a lot of professional illustrators that say if you can draw faces and hands, you can draw anything. And as we know, faces and hands are the most difficult thing to draw in traditional sketching and traditional drawing and traditional art techniques, and equally as difficult to render in digital. So that's why I just, plus students have a blast with it. It's fun. The results are awesome, and plus it's just a blast to have this kind of a project in your student portfolio. All right, that said, let's go ahead and jump right over to your work, and I've got your work right up here. All right, now I think that you're looking fantastic. I really do. I think that the start is really outstanding. As you indicated in your writing, you have some more detail to add, and I totally agree with that. Um, but let's go ahead and take a look at an overview of the general technique, and then we'll take a look at each individual illustration. So my main concern or my main um, reaction here is that this is conceptually different. Will Smith is conceptually different in execution than the others. And I say that because it's a different style. It's more of a caricature style in that we've got some over exaggerated elements, specifically how thin the neck is and how thin the face is, but specifically how thin and long the neck is, loans itself really to a more of a caricature style. And we don't see that in the others. The others seem to be a very, very realistic rendering of what you're seeing in the image. So I think that we're a little bit inconsistent in presentation in that regard. Um, and really, that's my only comment. The only other comment I have as far as the series go is to make sure that each of the images is uh, shown in a way that indicates that they are equal distant from the focal point. So when the time comes to place these in the template for the stamp, each portrait is going to take up roughly the same space in the stamp. And the reason that's important is because it's a series, so there should be a high degree of consistency in the series. Okay, now let's go to individual illustration. So yes, definitely needs more details here. More shadow, more highlight areas. I think that adding creases to the clothing will add some movement, and you may have to over exaggerate that, but definitely want to add some detail to the clothes, the tie, the shirt, the neck area, and of course the face. And we gotta get these little reflections, or try to, it doesn't have to be the reflections from the image. Take some artistic liberty here and try to maybe establish some highlight on the glasses area itself. Ears, more shadow areas in ears. I think a little bit more contrast in your depiction of shadow and highlight based on the parent hue of the skin tone. So, and then there's a couple of areas here where I'm seeing corner points where they should be rounded. This right here, that's a corner point. So see that point right there? It should be rounded. right? And that points the pen tool here. Here it's the same. This area needs some work right here. So that shirt actually should look like it's wrapped around the back of the neck. You see how it kind of wraps around right back there? That could come into play. That's an interesting technique too. I think that the collar is really dark compared to the rest of the shirt. So we've got shadows, right? We've got the depiction of shadows. And this shadow right here, since this is lit from above to create this kind of dramatic shadow, again, you may take some artistic liberties right here to try to see how you can make that look more natural. I think you've done a good job here, but just keep working, of course. Hair. Hair is going to be huge here. Hair, and then don't be afraid to add eyelashes and really get some of these details. Eyelashes are really, really gonna make a big difference, huge difference, as you'll see. Of course, Leonardo here, we got to get that kind of, he's got that kind of hair that swoops over like this, and so we have to get that shadow and highlight area. Leonardo is known best for what? And if it's a rhetorical question, but you should be thinking the dimples. And he's got these awesome dimples, and we're not seeing that here. That's very, very defining characteristic of his facial features. So I definitely would recommend getting those in there. We got the shapes of the eyes, a little more detail there. Try to get those specular highlights in the eyes too. Two things you want to include in eyes always are eyelashes and specular highlights. That's a reflection of the light. Also, I recommend maybe stroking the eyes in black. These eyes seem really, really small too. But stroking the eyes in black is going to allow you to it's going to bring more dramatic attention to the eye area. And in any illustration, in any photograph, in any design work, in any composition, if there is a picture or an image or an illustration of a human, just remember eyes go there first, and eyes will go right to the eyes. So when the viewer looks at your stamps, they're going to look at this particular illustration, they're going to look right here first. In this illustration, they're going to look right here first. So it stands to reason that those areas should be highly developed. And then the rest can follow suit. But again, I think that the thing missing here is take a look at the distance between the right side of the corner of his mouth and then the edge of his jowl right there, right? It just seems like this is a really, really exaggerated. That area of his face, I think, is much wider than it actually is. But got to get those. He's got those big round cheeks and those dimples. So we've got to get those in there, definitely. Over here, this is fantastic. But again, this I want to hot shadow, highlight, eye detail, etc. Texture in the hair, a little bit of detail in the hair. Same thing here. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that this is a stamp series, right? So right now, it looks like you're sampling color from the image itself to come up with the skin tone. Now, in a series, that might prove to be a little problematic in that in a series, you want these all to look consistent. The photographs are different because there are so many different variables in photography. I mean, you've got the film speed, you've got the lighting, the ambient lighting, you've got the artificial lighting, you've got exposure, you've got your f-stop, you've got so many variables in photography, and especially the ambient lighting of the room and or the way that the photograph was processed after the shoot. So there are going to be various skin tones, and that's just natural, right? But in the series, it might behoove you to try to come up with one consistent skin tone. Of course, this is not applicable as Will Smith's skin, of course, is much darker, but Leonardo and Tom Hanks and Robin, you might consider trying to come up with a more consistent presentation of skin tone that can be shared across all three. And this, again, will just increase the consistency of the series itself. All right, so yeah, good job. That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. Again, just detail, shadow, highlight. Look at those resources. Go back to week 3 announcement. And in week 3 announcement, there's probably 10 or 11 resources on establishing shadow and highlight in digital illustration. So be sure to take a look at that. And then, of course, take a look at the video tutorials that are located within the Learning resources in the class, and I think you'll come up with some really great ideas. All right, so I'm really pleased so far. I think you're doing a great job. This is I just want to reiterate something. This is a really super interesting technique. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And so, and it's that kind of pencil neck thing that's going on that creates this as more of a caricature. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like it would be a lot of work to try to transpose these three into that kind of caricature setting. So it might behoove you to just kind of try to adjust this to be a little bit more of a realistic rendering of the actual image it comes from. See how wide his neck is here. His neck here almost comes to, boy, if you can take a look at the glasses, the edge of the glasses, if you draw a line down from the edge of the glasses, and this is a trick in all illustration, not just digital illustration, but just to check your spatial relationships. You take marks, okay, and then take a look down. All right, so right now we can see that his neck is roughly the same width as the glasses, right? But if we come down here, we can see the neck is just nowhere near as wide as the glasses. So, all right, great start, really great start. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing here, Megan. So if you have any questions at all, please let me know, and I'll be glad to make any needed clarifications. Otherwise, keep working hard, and I can't wait to see this one come to fruition. Thank you very much, Megan.